It's a pleasure to see all of you today, and thank you for attending 2017 MDIC Annual Public Forum. This is a significant event for us. Every year we have an annual forum where we get the opportunity to share our work over the last year, and this year we're very pleased with the progress we've made, and we're very excited to share that with you. So, as we all know, one of the most constants in our world today is change, and it's a very dynamic environment. And that includes starting with our agenda today. We learned that the Commissioner Gottlieb, was called away to testify on the Hill this morning, so he's not going to be able to join us. We are fortunate, though, that we have Deputy Commissioner Anna Abram that will be with us today, and she's going to be our keynote speaker. As Deputy Commissioner for Policy, Planning, Legislation, and Analysis, Anna Abram plays a critical role in overseeing the development and implementation of key policy initiatives and provides strategic policy direction to advance FDA's mission and vision of protecting and promoting public health. Ms. Abram is a respected FDA policy thought leader with more than 13 years of healthcare policy experience, including more than a decade of working on healthcare policy in the United States Senate. She served as the longtime Health Policy Director and Senior Advisor to Senator Richard Burr at the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. Over the years, Ms. Abram has played key roles in advancing legislation to support innovation on behalf of patients and to strengthen our nation's public health. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Abram.
Look at that. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Good morning. And thank you for having me here today. Bill, I appreciate your kind introduction. Thank you. Before I get into the substance of remarks, I want to take a moment and acknowledge that my thoughts and prayers are with those impacted by yesterday's tragedy in Las Vegas, as well as those who are continuing to recover from the devastating hurricanes in recent weeks, including the people of Puerto Rico. Many medical device manufacturers have a footprint in Puerto Rico, and this is important both for patients as well as this community. And we appreciate that this has been a difficult time for many in recent days and weeks. Now, I'm grateful to be with you today on behalf of FDA's Commissioner, Dr. Scott Gottlieb. The Commissioner sends his regards and best wishes for a very productive forum. I'm particularly looking forward to providing an update on some of the exciting initiatives the Commissioner and Dr. Shuren are spearheading at the agency. Dr. Gottlieb is very focused on ensuring that the agency has the right policies in place to promote and encourage safe and effective innovation that can benefit consumers and adopt a modern regulatory approaches to enable the efficient development of medical technologies. By taking an efficient, science, and risk-based approach to our regulation, FDA can promote health through the creation of more new and beneficial medical products. We appreciate that public-private partnerships have fostered critical advances to some of the greatest public health challenges our nation has faced over the years. MDIC's work in developing a forum where FDA, industry, nonprofit organizations, patient groups, and others can work together has been instrumental in helping fulfill our shared goal of ensuring that patients have access to safe and effective medical technologies of public health importance in a timely manner. FDA and MDIC have a long history of collaboration. FDA was a co-founder of MDIC back in 2011, and the agency continues to work with MDIC on various medical device initiatives, many of which I know will be discussed in greater detail later today. We value these opportunities to collaborate on behalf of our nation's patients and innovators, and I want to take this moment to thank Dr. Shuren for his vision and leadership with MDIC. As FDA's Deputy Commissioner for Policy, Planning, Legislation, and Analysis, I know it's a mouthful. I have the privilege of working alongside the Commissioner and Dr. Shuren and other dedicated senior leaders at the agency, including our colleagues at the Center for Devices and Radiological Health. It's an honor to serve at an agency defined by a mission to protect and promote public health. It's also a deeply humbling responsibility. Our work touches the lives of Americans each and every day, and in very impactful and meaningful ways. This holds true with our medical device initiatives. And today, I'd like to highlight some of these exciting undertakings and the promise they hold for consumers. I'll start with the Center's work relating to real-world evidence. CDRH has made great strides in closing the gap between information the agency uses to make regulatory decisions and the evidence increasingly used by the medical community, payers, and others charged with making healthcare decisions. In August, FDA issued final guidance on the use of real-world evidence in the development of medical devices. The guidance clarified how the agency evaluates real-world data to determine whether they are sufficient for generating the types of evidence that can be used by FDA regulatory decision-making for medical devices. Remarkably, since early 2015, FDA has approved or cleared new medical devices and expanded the use of technologies based, at least in part, on evidence derived from real-world evidence. These products include drug-eluting stents, transcatheter heart valves, technologies for spinal cord stimulation, and several in vitro diagnostics. In these cases, FDA is using robust evidence that was generated in less time and at a lower cost than in the past, in some cases saving 1 to 2 years of development time. CDRH also has been working hard on evaluating how post-market collection of real-world evidence can be used to support new and evolving medical device functions. This has included its pioneering work on the National Evaluation System for Health Technology, or NEST, with which you all are likely very familiar and which will be the topic of extensive discussion later today. In addition to these efforts, CDRH is adopting a modern approach to the center structure. CDRH is piloting a total product lifecycle office, which will allow the center to take a holistic approach to product review, product and manufacturing quality, and post-market surveillance. Now, this is a particularly novel concept, since, as many of you know, FDA has typically approached products based on either a pre- or post-market status. The agency realizes that there may be limitations to its traditional approach where the pre-market process may not be as fully informed by post-market findings, and the post-market teams may not have sufficient access to the learnings gained by evaluating products as part of the pre-market process. By having our teams look at products throughout their entire life cycle, FDA is enhancing our understanding of the products and their impact on patients. Deepening our understanding will, in turn, support improved application of our least burdensome approaches, a core principle that transcends all of our medical device work. CDRH also has been very focused on advancing its patient preference initiative, which was originally launched in 2013. Patients are at the heart of our medical device work, providing valuable input into the risks and benefits of a medical device, as well as providing insights into how new technologies should be designed to better meet their needs. Since issuing guidance on how to assess patient benefit and risk evaluations related to relevant device types and specific illnesses and conditions, FDA has been increasing evidence of the benefits of soliciting patient feedback. For example, for the first time, CDRH recently cleared an expanded indication for a home hemodialysis machine so it could be used without a care partner being present, a decision based in part on asking kidney disease patients about their tolerance for risk. Notably, the survey data supporting this clearance was based on a weighting method described in the patient preference framework developed by MDIC. This is just one example of how this public-private partnership is directly informing our decision-making on behalf of patients. These efforts complement CDRH's work with the Patient Engagement Advisory Committee, which was established to provide advice to the Commissioner on complex issues relating to medical devices, regulation of devices, and their use by patients. The committee includes members knowledgeable in areas such as clinical research, primary care, patient experience, and healthcare needs of patient groups. The committee will be meeting next week to tackle issues relating to patient participation in every stage of the clinical trial enterprise, from the design of the study to the communication of trial results. This meeting will provide the opportunity to bring patients, patient organizations, FDA, industry, and other medical and scientific experts together for a broader discussion on this important patient-related issue. This meeting is a key part of FDA's goal to help ensure that the needs and experiences of patients are included as part of FDA's deliberations involving the regulation of medical devices and their use by patients. Another exciting initiative is FDA's Digital Health Innovation Plan that is focused on fostering innovation at the intersection of medicine and digital health technologies, an area which holds transformational potential for consumers and patients. However, in order for this potential to be fully realized, FDA must use its framework in addition to the right policies and regulatory tools to encourage safe and effective innovation. As a regulator, it is critical for FDA to be predictable, especially in rapidly evolving areas like digital health, so that innovators will not be deterred from pursuing promising innovations due to regulatory uncertainty. We're working hard to implement the provisions of the 21st Century Cures Act, including those pertaining to digital health, and plan to publish guidance to clarify how these statutory provisions affect pre-existing FDA policies, as well as what falls outside the scope of FDA regulation. The Commissioner has also made clear our intent to provide guidance to clarify our position on products that contain multiple software functions, where some fall outside the scope of FDA regulation, but others do not. Our goal in putting out this guidance is to provide greater certainty regarding what types of digital health technology are subject to regulation and regarding FDA's compliance policies. This should help to spur innovation and help the agency focus more resources on higher risk priorities. These are just a few of the many exciting and promising initiatives that CDRH has been carrying out under the leadership of Dr. Gottlieb and Dr. Shuren. This is truly an exciting time for patients. Our ability to apply patient input and integrate technological advances into our regulatory decision-making will help us maintain our role as the global leader in medical innovation. FDA's public-private partnerships, including MDIC, play a pivotal role in fostering an ecosystem in which patients are benefiting from safe and effective medical advances, supported by an efficient, risk-based regulatory framework that maintains FDA's gold standard in our work to protect and promote the public health. The agency's partnership with MDIC is a testament to our shared commitment to support the regulatory science essential to fostering safe and effective innovations that will benefit patients. The agency's goal is to make sure the medical device industry is able to advance new innovation that can benefit patients, while also working to ensure that FDA's regulatory process is efficient and adaptive to enable safe, beneficial technologies to reach the market. And we look forward to continuing to work with you to advance these important goals. Thank you so much for your partnership in these critical endeavors. I'd be happy to take a few questions. Yeah, I'd be happy to take a few questions, although I'll note Dr. Shuren will be around for questions later, in case that influences what you want to ask me. So you're welcome, Jeff.
There's a microphone in back if anybody would like to ask questions. Don't be shy. I'll ask a question back here so they can hear out the... We have close to, I think, 250 people that are on the WebEx today. Is this on? Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that they could hear the question as well. I had the opportunity to hear the commissioner speak a few weeks ago at the RAPS meeting, and he talked about the importance of modeling and simulation and using these new tools and methods in helping to inform regulatory decision making. I don't know if that's something that you have any insights into, but for the medical device community that has, we have at MDIC significant programs around modeling and simulation. Could you say something in that area in terms of what the agency is doing, in particular around modeling and simulation?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I think I'd put it in the context of the remarks I made, and I know that this is a point that the Commissioner has emphasized when he's had the opportunity to engage with stakeholders and the industry, is really around how do we make sure we have the most modern approaches at play in our regulatory framework. And so it's both being prepared to be as modern as those products coming before us and to have efficient processes. And I think we're very interested in the tools that can be brought to bear that will still enable us to have the confidence in the decisions that we're making, but at the same time can help to tackle and have a meaningful, positive impact around some of the challenges we know developers face in clinical trial design, in the time and cost it takes to ultimately bring forward those products that make their way to patients. And so I think very much his focus on that, it stems from a place of looking across the work at the agency to make sure we're modern and we have a regulatory framework that reflects both the challenges we face today as well as the opportunities, and certainly that includes bringing to bear cutting-edge applications into our regulatory decision-making, quite frankly.
Oh, okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Luann Pendy with Medtronic. And first of all, I just want to thank the agency for all the great work that you've done moving us forward. It's had a tremendous impact, I think, on our patients as well as on industry. And the MDIC has been a great player in that whole program, so really appreciate that. My question for you is around the patient preference study. And I understand that the agency is doing some work there to collect the information from patients, but do you have some ideas about how industry might participate in that process?
Absolutely, and I think the work to make sure that patients are having input across the total life cycle of products has really been a paradigm shift that we've seen, I'd say, over the past 5 to 7 years, although patients are, as I said in my remarks, they're at the heart of what you do and what we do. They're the core. And I think very much through collaborations and partnerships like MDIC, we're able to work together to figure out what are the measures, what are the ways in which we want to be capturing those very important patient perspectives so they can inform clinical trial design, they can inform preferences that can go into our decision making around what are the types of risks that some patients might be willing to take on as part of their care, as part of their preferences. And so it's something that I know has been an area of good collaboration between the agency and MDIC, but it's still, I think, arguably being worked through. And part of that is it's an iterative process to learn from the experiences of being able to apply that to products, but also set in place a framework whereby it is really capturing patient preference that can be applied in a meaningful way. So some of it is developing the science around it to make sure that it can be integrated in a predictable manner. Yep.
Any other questions? I have another question. I'm I guess, the plant in the audience here. One of the things that MDIC has been doing is not only collaborating with FDA, but we also collaborate with other parts of government, CMS, NIH, et cetera. And we were talking about this before the meeting today. Could you comment about how the collaboration and interaction is happening at the commissioner to administrator level between CMS and FDA? Because I'll tell you that the common theme that we hear is that there's been tremendous progress, transformational progress actually at FDA. And the number one issue that our industry members talk about today is reimbursement and trying to figure out how to kind of make that a more seamless process is of high interest.
Yeah, no, I very much appreciate that question. And I'm reminded, Jeff may or may not remember this, but it was a couple of years ago where I had the opportunity, I was working on the Hill at the time for Senator Richard Burr from North Carolina, and FDA was hosting a group of us out on White Oaks campus to talk about, to showcase great work the agency's doing, but also provide an opportunity for dialogue around what are the challenges that many of the constituents, member companies such as yourself, face in identifying a promising concept, bringing it through the development phases, and then ultimately having it be used in the clinical setting. And coverage and reimbursement very much influences that last piece about it actually being there and accessible when patients need it. And I remember Jeff and I had a really good conversation around kind of the evolving challenges that increasingly in my capacity on the Hill, I was hearing from individuals such as yourself that the desire really to see clear, predictable pathways, both with respect to the regulatory decision-making at FDA, as well as at CMS. And I think we very much strive to have as seamless as possible, good, strong interagency dialogue and working relationships, because we do recognize that there is a continuum here. It starts with your basic clinical, translational, it then comes into the development phases, the clinical trial work that's under our review, and then ultimately with a goal of making sure that patients are being able to benefit from the progress and from the advances that are being made. And particularly in a device context, because of the very iterative process and improvement and innovation cycles that you all go through, which is inherently distinct and unique in some ways that are different from other medical products. And so we're cognizant of that. I know that there has been some collaboration over the years looking at opportunities for parallel review, and where there is a shared goal that transcends all of the work here to make sure that ultimately patients are able to benefit from safe and effective medical products, including medical technologies, in as timely a manner as possible. And that really does transcend, again, the continuum of it. So it's something where we work closely with them. My colleagues at CMS really are the ones charged with the reimbursement and coverage decisions that are specific to the programs that they oversee. But it is something that we are cognizant of in terms of where there can be appropriate opportunities to collaborate and where we are distinctly focused on what our mission and charge is at FDA.
It's a shy group today. Another question that you mentioned in your talk, digital health, and of course that is transforming all aspects of health care and is also impacting the traditional vertical lines between the centers, CEDAR, CBER, CDRH as an example, as digital health technologies are starting to be incorporated into combination products and other things. Can you say a little bit about how the agency is thinking about addressing the new technologies as they come forward, and it's no longer quite as clear the pathway for product approvals for some of these combination or combined product areas?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll answer that in more general terms, but I think it transcends. I mean, we are at a tremendously exciting time in medicine, and nobody knows that better than all of you and your colleagues that are out in the field caring for patients. And we also recognize that there are really novel products that are coming forward that may not fit neatly within paradigms that were conceived in an era when medicine just looked very different. And this is a constant challenge as a regulator to make sure that we are prepared, quite frankly, for the novel technologies and products coming before the agency, but we recognize that it's incumbent upon us within the framework that Congress has given us to provide as much regulatory certainty and predictability to the process. So even though emerging complex novel products may raise novel questions, it's also an opportunity for us to, as much as possible, provide certainty to what that regulatory path forward looks like. The last thing we would want to see is a lack of predictability or uncertainty have a chilling effect such that it might deter or delay a promising, safe, and effective product reaching patients.
Hello, Deputy Commissioner. I'm Karen Conway. I'm with Global Healthcare Exchange, but I also chair the Association for Healthcare Resource and Materials Management. You want to talk about a mouthful.
I think you might have me beat.
Yes, it's the supply chain organization within the American Hospital Association. And so this is kind of a parallel question to the one from the attendee from Medtronic, in terms of, the FDA has primarily worked with industry because it's regulating industry. Although I do want to commend the work of the UDI team that is really looking at UDI adoption and working with hospitals. So a question in terms of your vision for the role of hospitals, healthcare delivery systems, in terms of helping us generate this real-world evidence.
Right, well, and that's something that we've put out guidance, as I mentioned in my remarks, around giving greater clarity as to the types of real-world evidence that we want to employ. I mean, I think we very much view our role as being partners with the entire healthcare ecosystem, and that certainly includes providers and clinicians. We want to hear from them. We want to partner with them. We want to make sure that where there's opportunities for collaboration that can ultimately inform our decision making to make sure we're making the best decisions possible on behalf of patients, that we're leveraging those opportunities. And it's a good example in your question inherent is that we are at a point now in medicine that has advanced, and technology is being applied not just in the regulatory decision making but in the day-to-day practice of care, and it creates opportunities that can be challenging sometimes, but that's where the dialogue in settings and forums such as this is so critical, because it helps to work through, okay, where are we finding opportunities where there's untapped potential to further collaborate ultimately in achieving a shared mission on behalf of patients. And so we very much in our work that spans both devices, drugs, I mean, it runs the whole gamut of what we regulate, we want to hear from clinicians, we want to hear from patients, we want to hear from providers, those who are out there caring with patients. We want to be able to leverage their insights into how we can better serve patients.
Randy Schistel, Boston Scientific and MDIC board member. Thank you very much for your contributions here. Predictability is key. You mentioned that, and for industry, that's really important to us. Another thing you mentioned was the Total Product Lifecycle Office.
Yes.
Can you say more about that, and have objectives been set for the office?
That's actually a question I'm probably going to defer to my colleague, Dr. Shuren, to speak to, since he's really spearheading the efforts there. But I think inherent to that is something I touched upon in the remarks, and the commissioners highlighted, is making sure that our framework, as we're structured, as we're doing our day-to-day work, is really best enabled to support the direction that we need to go to in regulating products. And I think we recognize that we need to have coordination internally to make sure that we're fully leveraging what our pre and post market are doing, and I touched upon that in my remarks. And so making sure that we have the right structure internally, and this is something certainly the Center Director, Dr. Shuren, can speak to about how we're standing it up so that in the day-to-day we aren't missing an opportunity to leverage and gain insights that ultimately can help us to be as efficient as possible in our regulatory decision making.
I have a question from one of our online viewers. Dr. Gottlieb has said he'd like more systematic periodic review of regulations. What kind of time frame do you kind of expect to be reasonable for that kind of review?
Thank you for that question. Thank you for being a conduit for that question from our online participant. This is actually a great opportunity for me to highlight that we currently have various open dockets where we are soliciting feedback related to where there are opportunities for us to modernize our approaches. I think some of you are aware that the administration is engaged in a process of looking across the totality of our regulations with an eye towards where there's opportunities for us to update, revise, reform them. In some cases, they may simply just be a vestige of a bygone era where it makes sense to eliminate them. And I really want to take the opportunity to underscore that our work in this regard and the regulatory reform work is deeply rooted, and we will be doing it consistent with our public health mission. But it is an opportunity where if you haven't taken a look at the docket, I would encourage you to submit comments if you have suggestions or ideas or feedback that you think could help inform. But we are engaged in a process. We will be looking across the totality of all of FDA's regulations to make sure, again, that the processes that we're working with, the regulations, the guidance that we have on the books, that it is modern and reflective of both our challenges today but the opportunities.
Any other questions from the audience? Well, Deputy Commissioner Abram, I'd like to thank you for your time and thoughtful remarks today. We appreciate the support we get from the Commissioner, yourself, and the entire agency.
Absolutely. Well, best wishes for a great session. Thank you.